Hello and welcome. You're listening to You and the Law on AM 650. I'm Sterling Fox. I'm joined in studio by Joe Murphy and Scott Stanley from Murphy Battista LLP. Joe and Scott, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sterling.
Joe, tell us a little bit about your firm. You're a founding partner with Murphy Battista.
Sterling, in the beginning of '82, Joe Battista and I, two lawyers, each with a secretary, created a firm called Murphy Battista. It was at a time when the interest rates were about 19%.
I recall those days.
No new businesses were beginning, and a lot of businesses were floundering.
Right.
And we created this little firm, two lawyers and two secretaries, and that firm today is 12 lawyers and about 45 support staff. We have a full floor at a big tower downtown, so it's gone from very small to one of the biggest boutique law firms in Western Canada.
In about 30 years.
Yes.
So that's a pretty amazing progress. Now, the activity of Murphy Battista is in the area of personal injury and insurance law, correct?
Well, Sterling, we act against insurance companies for clients. Many of them are injured in car accidents, but a variety of them are injured in other ways, and some of them have claims with insurance companies where they won't pay. Disability insurance claims, a fire claim, any kind of claim. So again, we act for people suing insurance companies.
Interesting stuff. Now, Scott, I'm going to talk to Joe about how he recruited you in a little bit, but tell us a little bit about yourself, because you actually started in the legal profession working for what would be the other team from your present perspective, right?
I did that for 13 years. And I was born as a lawyer at a time when you really couldn't discriminate. I needed a job to pay the bills and get married, and that's just where I ended up on that side of the fence.
Working for insurance companies, again, in the area of personal injury, Scott, or was there a wider spectrum to it all?
Same thing, personal injury, and also representing insurance companies to defend just basic insurance claims. But 70% of it was personal injury defense, and 30% of it was just in defending insurance policies.
So, Joe, you must have come across Scott in a courtroom, or certainly in some kind of adversarial situation first.
Well, it's surprising, Sterling. We never did a trial against one another, but we had a few cases we were involved in over the course of the years before I approached Scott and said, let's talk. And the talks led to me saying to Scott, I want you to come and join us. And he did, and he's a partner in the firm now.
Interesting. And Scott, one of the things that attracted you to Joe's offer was something called an ethical umbrella that Joe has included as part of Murphy Battista since day one. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, Murphy Battista's always had a good reputation for looking after their clients first. And you can see that even as a defense lawyer. You could see behaviors from the members of Murphy Battista that would be different than behaviors at other law firms. And so it was always clear to me when I was defending claims that they were always out for their client, and whatever happened. The clients always came first, and that's compelling to me. I really wanted to be a part of that.
So, Joe, what is it that drives you to fight these big insurance companies? It really is kind of a David and Goliath scenario. You've identified the fact that your firm has grown from 2 lawyers. Now you're downtown at the Scotia Tower. You've got a dozen lawyers on staff and a good-sized team. But it's all come about because of your passion for your work in personal injury law. So what is it that drives you to this day?
Well, Sterling, if you met some of our clients and heard their stories, usually there's a great tragedy there. You can't help but be motivated to make this thing right, which is getting damages for them. We are fairly selective in which cases we take. If we have a client who we think is being dishonest with us, that's the end of the road. We don't act for them. But the clients we do act for, we believe in, and the firm has always been based on being client-centered. It's all about the client. It's not about the firm. And our philosophy has never been to grow. Our philosophy has always been to do a really good job for this client, and that has resulted in growth because of the people who've come in the door. We've done a lot of trial work, and I think a firm in this business has to do that. You have to be ready, willing, and able to go to court, and you have to be able to go to court and get very good results. And we have a history of getting very, very good results, some landmark cases, number of landmark cases. So insurance companies know that when we've got a case that we're ready, willing, and able to go to court, but the reality is 9 out of 10 of those settle, but they settle for the best dollar because we're prepared.
I was just going to say, because the lawyers are helping guide the settlement,
Yes.
it turns out to be a very advantageous settlement.
Yes.
Okay, now one of the things that you talk about, Scott, is coming to the firm, crossing the fence, so to speak, because you developed an appreciation for the way Joe Murphy and his team have interact with their clients. You notice something different about the Murphy Battista team's approach to and dealings with their clients, different from other firms and other lawyers. In what way?
Well, I mean, you compare what's going on their side of the fence, comparable to what was going on my side of the fence when I was a defense lawyer. And you know, as a defense lawyer, there's not a lot of reward that you get from that. It's kind of wretched work, or at least I found it that way.
Defending, acting on the part of insurance companies.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's good, honest work. It pays the bill. There's no shame in it. But I never lost a trial for an insurance company, and I never had a client give me a thank you card. And what I always found compelling is when I would look at the other side, and sometimes, you know, the lawyers and their clients, the plaintiff lawyers and their clients, they wouldn't always be in harmony with one another, but they mostly were. And I certainly saw that when I was dealing with members of Murphy Battista. You could see that the lawyer and client were perfectly aligned. They were completely at ease as to what they're doing. When you're a defense lawyer, you know, that's not always the case.
Sure. Interesting stuff. Joe, we've never seen, or at least I've never seen, a commercial during the Late Late Show on TV for Murphy Battista. You don't advertise, and yet you've managed this incredible growth cycle over several decades. Why have you chosen not to advertise ever?
Sterling, our advertising has been based upon doing a really good job for the clients.
Sure.
As a result, we get clients, friends, relatives, neighbors sent in. People in the profession see the work we do, defense counsel, insurance adjusters, therapists, doctors, and they end up saying to people, here are the lawyers you should go and speak to.
So it's reputation, literally reputation and word of mouth.
It's client-centered. You do a very, very good job for this client, and they will come.
Now, Scott, I want to talk to you a little bit next in our next segment about how to go about selecting a lawyer, finding one, because you've worked on both sides of the fence, and you know what the qualities that are the most desirable and what people should look for. But, Joe, I'm curious about one thing you just said a few moments ago about your clients. You take the time to vet your clients so that when you do go and take on a case and a client, you're convinced that this is the right person and this person has merit, and so does the case, and off we go. That's an insurance law and personal injury law that I'm sure has produced some smiles over the years, because not everybody who tries to take on an insurance company is doing it for the right reasons. We had a case quite recently in the papers about a couple who had faked an accident and made an outrageous claim, and they got caught and fined big time. So what percentage of people who approach personal injury law firms like Murphy Battista are actually trying to scam something?
Very, very few.
Okay.
Maybe one in 50. The belief is people who make claims are exaggerating or they're phony, and that's just not the case. People hate staying home from work. They go crazy staying at home from work. Most people enjoy their work, and when you ask someone, what do you do, that's the cornerstone of their life. Well, I'm a butcher, I'm a baker,
Sure.
I'm a carpenter. So the idea that people will stay home from work to try and get more money, that's nonsense. But we are very careful when we first meet with clients to make sure that these are people who are legitimate. And after you've done it for many years,
Doesn't take long.
you can get a sense in an interview
Yeah.
that someone just doesn't add up. I do a lot of brain injury cases, and my brain injured clients come in into the first meeting. When I say, how are you? They say, I'm fine. If I have someone who comes in and says, I have a brain injury, here's the research I've done, here's the papers, here's the articles, I don't take that case.
Interesting.
Because my brain injured clients think they're fine when they come in.
Oh.
So different. But again, we have clients who come from a troubled background. They may have health issues. They may have family issues. They may have a variety of things. I call those warts. That's the reality. We all have warts in our background. No one is perfect. But if we've got a legitimate, valid client, and we've got a client who, as almost all of them are, they just want to get their life back. They're not there to get a lot of money. Again, if I have a client in the first interview who says, I want to go to court, I want to see justice, I probably won't take that client, because that's not what my clients want. They say, I just want my life back.
Well, aren't some people, though, just angry, Joe? Just
Yes.
they've been jerked around,
Yes.
and these
Yes.
insurance companies treating them like the enemy. It wasn't their fault. They're banged up. As you say, their life has gone straight to hell in a handbasket.
Yep.
But they're angry.
Yeah, that anger is understandable and it's expected, but that can't be the foundation of a claim.
Fair enough.
It's not
Fair
about
enough.
anger.
So you have to interpret the anger and get that individual to see past it.
Well, and the key to that, Sterling, is spending time talking to these people, talk to the families, get to know them. Because sometimes people will present as being odd or different, but when you get to know them, when you get to know the family background, you get to understand them, it's a whole different view. And sometimes you have to do that, because without that, you're not going to find out about all their problems. I had a social worker once as a client, rear-end accident, was off work for 2 months, went back to work, therapy continued, and it was only when I really sat down and talked to her that I found out she did child apprehension work. This awful work where each day you go into a house and you take a child away.
Yeah.
And she ran every night, and that was the only way emotionally she could wash away all these terrible things she dealt with.
Right.
And after the accident, she went back to
couldn't
work.
run?
She couldn't run, and she
Right.
nearly had a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
So I had her seen by a psychiatrist, and he offered some treatment, but he explained how this accident had this added feature to it, and it really, as I say, almost pushed her over the edge. So you only find that out if you sit down and talk to these people and listen to them.
And Scott, just before we go to break, you having worked, I'm pulling on your older experience as a defense lawyer working for the insurance companies. Is it not the case, and I'm talking popular myth here, and you can burst the bubble if you need to, is it not the case that from the insurance company's perspective, virtually anyone making a claim is the enemy? They're trying to rip us off. They're trying to take us for a ride.
You know, when you do defense work, you're programmed to disbelieve, and you're indoctrinated to think that way. And it takes a while to reposition your mind, but no, it's true. Every claim that's presented is either not true, it's exaggerated, it's not what it's made out to be. You know, I took a stock in my mind of the number of cases I came across as a defense lawyer. I've defended about 1,000 of them, and maybe 7 of them were fake claims. So very, very low.
Right.
When you look at it objectively, about 7 of them were fake claims.
So for those of us, civilians, who feel somewhat beset upon when we attempt to get some reaction or interaction with these large companies, and we're made to feel like the enemy, by gosh, it's true. That's the way that they intend us to feel.
Well, that's the way they make you feel. I mean, the reality of it is people are just a number.
I'm attributing motive, perhaps, that I don't need to, but nonetheless, that's the feeling.
Well, they're just a number, right? And it's a number they want to keep as small as they can, and they keep it small by advancing theories that things aren't true, things are not what they're supposed to be, they're not what they're claimed to be. But it's all about, visiting negativity on the claimant. It's not a pleasant thing for people to go through.
It certainly isn't.
And no one in their right mind would want to go through this. I can't imagine a healthy mind that would say, I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to advance a fake claim. You'd have to be in such a desperate spot in life to be motivated to do that. And it rarely happens.
This is a brand new show on AM 650. It's called You and the Law. I'm Sterling Fox, in studio with lawyers Joe Murphy and Scott Stanley from Murphy Battista LLP. Quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to get these 2 lawyers to help you and me learn how best to hire a lawyer and when you absolutely should do just that. After the break.